Hey everyone, welcome to another episode of Gripe, the show for short, sweet reviews of new release movies, plus the one thing that annoyed me the most. And today I'm going to be talking about Marvel's latest film, Doctor Strange. And fair warning, there are major spoilers. He's one of the finest neurosurgeons in the world, dedicated to perfecting his craft. But when a devastating accident ruins his hands, he seeks help from an unexpected source, which shows him the depths of the universe he never even knew existed. The film stars Benedict Cumberbatch, Chiwetel Ejiofor, Rachel McAdams, Mads Mikkelsen, Benedict Wong, Benjamin Bratt, and Tilda Swinton, and the film is directed by Scott Derrickson. This is the latest outing from Marvel, and going in, it certainly felt like a huge gamble. This is the first foray into magic and exploring the multiverse outside of what we already know. And it also does potentially set up alternate timelines for the future MCU. And casting Cumberbatch to play the titular role was actually a really smart move that I think paid off well. Because ultimately, the cast is what drives this film, because it does tell this patient unfolding of Strange's origin. You have accomplished actors like Cumberbatch, Ejiofor, and Swinton leading the way. In fact, 4 of the leads have been nominated for Oscars, and Tilda Swinton has actually won one. So you've got a really talented cast leading the way in this film. Even though it is a comic movie, it is well paced, and the drama is cohesive, but it is still a comic movie at its core, so there are moments of levity dropped in here and there just to remind you this is still a Marvel Universe movie. Cumberbatch and McAdams work extremely well together. I do like their dynamic. It doesn't feel forced. It feels a lot more natural and actually almost like on an equal plane. And Mikkelsen is great as the villain, but Marvel's problem with villains really does persist here. And that may be why they chose Caecilius, because even though he is strong, he's also disposable. Likewise, they set up Baron Mordo as a future villain. His name is just Mordo in this movie, who may just end up being another Loki. So it's still one of those problems that Marvel has not figured out how to make a good, lasting villain outside of Loki. Now, you can't argue that the visuals are not impressive. They are Inception or Matrix level mind-bending. The world-changing effects that they use are very well done, and there's fantastic detail, especially in how it's incorporated into the fight scenes. You would think that it would make it really confusing and chaotic, but realistically, it looks gorgeous. The dark dimension is really the only aspect to me that seems just a bit too cheesy. And this is one of those that, coming out of it, it's like, oh, here we go again. They did another movie where the hero goes into another dimension to save the day. It happened in Ant-Man, it happened in Big Hero 6, it happened in Ghostbusters. It just seems to be happening more and more where somebody is going into an alternate reality, an alternate dimension to save the day kind of thing to end the movie, and it's kind of getting old. I was really happy that they included one of Strange's big bads, Dormammu, but I really wasn't blown away by his look. In the comics, he is this monstrous, head on fire, many eyes, just crazy looking demon creature. And here it was more just a giant face. But obviously, you have to make a giant cosmic creature believable while still making it look cool. But ultimately, the end scene just kind of reminded me of the Matrix Revolutions when Neo goes to the robot city and there's that giant face robot that he talks to there. It just kind of reminded me of that scenario. And minus the big bad fight, this movie isn't overly reliant on chaotic or big action. The fights are usually smaller and more contained, but there is still a lot of action. There's action throughout this movie, but it's not on the same level as, say, like Civil War. It is much more contained and a lot smaller scale. Ultimately, the focus of this movie is more on Strange growing and exploring this new world of magic that he finds himself in. But that also does come to my key gripe. Complicated source material was handled very much like a Marvel movie. What I mean is that they present a great idea, but they have to make it fun, so they end up contradicting themselves. Strange is taught to use spells as a way of producing magic. There's no real talk of that he has some magic in him. It's his basically using these spells as a way to basically produce magic. In the end credits, there's a scene where Mordo comes to Benjamin Bratt's character Pangborn and takes the power from him as if it were given, not learned. So that raises the question, which is it? Is it learned or is it given? They're so eager to show the magic that they don't spend enough time explaining how the magic exists. And like the characters, we buy into it easily, but then they contradict themselves and ultimately confuse us. I'm glad they tried to bring some complexity into the MCU, but it still handled the Marvel way. And that means that spectacle and humor and formula ultimately are more important than these flushed out concepts. They don't want to bore the audience, they got to keep them on the edge of their seat. So they take a complex concept and make it as small and compact as possible, but then they contradict themselves, and I don't even know where they are anymore. Overall, this is one of the more cohesive Marvel films that unfolds patiently and coherently. Visually, it is mind-blowing, but the cast doesn't let the visuals dominate the impact of the film. It's still a Marvel movie, for better or worse, but the implications it sets for the larger MCU are certainly intriguing. And I'm going to give this movie an 8 out of 10 for being definitely one of the higher-tier Marvel movies that we've seen in recent memory. Now, I will do another video discussing the state of the MCU, but I at least want to point out why this movie is important to the future. We won't have Robert Downey Jr. or Chris Evans forever. Eventually, they will need to change actors for some of our favorite characters. And Doctor Strange may have given them the out they need to start building the new MCU for Phase 4 and beyond. So it certainly is an important movie, and hopefully it does pay off down the road. Let me know what you thought of Doctor Strange, whether you enjoyed it or not, some of the parts that you loved about the movie, or some of the things that were annoying to you in the movie. And that does it for this episode of Key Gripe, and I'll see you guys next time. Bye-bye. Hey gang, thanks for watching this video. If you like what you see, you can click to subscribe to check out my other videos right here on YouTube. Or you can click the link to check out my website to find out about all of my other projects, including my podcasts, as well as my books. So what do you say? Click away.